It says, in the vanity of their minds. The word vanity literally means emptiness or a void. Vanity, in the emptiness of their minds. And boy, you don't have to look very far to find that really is true. And in fact, just turn on the television any hour, day or night, you'll find out what it means to vanity of their mind, the emptiness of minds. And even the ones who think they're smart. Anyway, verse 18. Having the understanding darkened. He's talking about Gentiles. Don't walk like they walk. Having the understanding darkened. Being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart. Even people who are intellectually smart, if they don't know God, and their heart is blind and subject to all kinds of... I shouldn't get off on this, but I saw something on television. This man, he was very critical of Christians, in fact mocking people like us, and he was talking about how life began with a big bang and everything just evolved from that. And so the person interviewing him said, what caused the big bang? Where did the life come from? Who started the life? Well, he said, we don't know. But then he started to say, we don't know for sure, but we think maybe some aliens came from outer space. And I thought to myself, here this guy is, he's making fun of us for believing in God, and when you get right down to it, what he's got at his core belief is maybe some aliens came from outer space. Now that, see, to me, that doesn't give him any grounds to make fun of us for believing God created life, started life. Anyway, let me just read that again. Having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart. What is Paul saying this? He said, don't act like them, don't walk like them, don't conduct yourself the way they do, because they are going to get for themselves a lot of trouble. Paul says we've got a better life to live. Who being past feeling, verse 19, have given themselves over unto lasciviousness to work all uncleanness with greediness. But you have not so learned Christ. In other words, that's not what Jesus is like. Verse 20. Verse 21 says, if so be that you've heard Him and have been taught by Him, as the truth is in Jesus, that's where the truth is, in Jesus, that you put off, verse 22, concerning the former conversation. This word conversation is an old English word, not meaning what you say, but not necessarily that, but in King James usage, it means the way you conduct your life in relation to other people. Now, it has degraded itself into our current usage where we talk with one another, but originally it meant not just talking with one another, but your whole life in relation to one another. So Paul here is saying the way you live in relation to one another, that you put off the old man, which is corrupt according to the deceitful lust. Now, who is the old man that you put off? Well, put off the old man. That's who you used to be before Jesus. That's who you would have been apart from Jesus. That's you apart from Christ. Put that one off. Verse 23 says, be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Verse 24 says, that you put on the new man, which after God is created in righteousness and true holiness. Now, he says, put off the old man and put on the new man. How do you do that? Well, how you do that is in verse 23. Notice that one more time. Verse 23 says, be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Your mind is right up here. Be renewed is change the way you think. Change the way you think about yourself. Change the way you think about who you are. I've talked to people sometimes who talk about, counseling with them. And they say, well, I can't help it. That's just the way I am. Talking about some, bad habit or some, thing that they've done or, that's just the way I am. But the truth is that's not the way you am. That's the way you used to be. You am somebody different now. That's why Paul here is saying, be renewed in the spirit of your mind. That's not who you are. That's who you used to be. And who am I now? Well, he tells you in verse 24. Put on. See, what does he say put on? Because you choose to put it on where? Right up here in the way you think about yourself. Put on the new man. Well, what is it? Well, create, first of all, the new man, which is after God. That word after God literally means like God or in His likeness. After or like God, created in righteousness and true holiness. That's who you really are, created in righteousness and true holiness. Now, in case these words are vague to us, he goes on and describes to us what he means by that. Verse 25. Wherefore, putting away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor. In other words, deal honestly with one another. Notice this is all about our interactions between one another. Don't lie to one another. Be sincere, be honest. for we are members one of another, that is, as Christians. Verse 26, be ye angry and sin not, let not the sun go down upon your wrath, neither give place to the devil. I can only assume by that in verse 26 that he means, if you get angry, get over it. I believe that's what he means by that. Verse 26, be ye angry and sin not, do not let the sun go down upon your wrath. What he's saying is, I think, it's natural. You can't help the fact that things might happen that might cause you to get angry, but don't keep it. Let it go and get over it. And when he says, don't let the sun go down upon your wrath, I believe what he's saying is, get over it right away. Don't dwell on it and just let it fester, because then you give place to the devil. Nothing good or nothing godly is ever done by getting angry. Did you ever think about that? God doesn't work through people getting angry. Look at Jesus. That's a good example. Verse 27. Neither give place to the devil. Verse 28. Let him that steal no more. He's just giving you practical application of what he said about put on the new man, put off the old man. If you stole before, don't steal anymore. But let him labor, working with his hands, the thing that is good, that he might have to give to him that's needy. In other words, instead of stealing from people, work and get more than you need, so you have something to give to them. Instead of stealing from them, this is the nature of Christ. This is the way we walk in relation to one another. Let no corrupt communication come out of your mouth, but that which is good to the edifying, good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace to the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of God, whereby you're sealed unto the day of redemption. Verse 31. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you. See, put away reminds me when he says put off the old man. These are all things to do with the old man. Bitterness and wrath and anger and evil speaking be put away from you. In its place, verse 32. Be ye kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you. He is saying the way you live in your life in relation to one another, hearken back to the way Jesus deals with us. Look back to the first thing he talked about, where he said we're seated in heavenly places with Christ. Just the same way that Christ forgave us. Well, just remind yourself of how did he forgive me? Now you can go and forgive others the same way. Now, what have we said so far? Well, he's talked about two relationships. Our relationship with God, he characterizes that by a word, sit. We've seated in heavenly places. He's used another word for another posture, meaning walk. The way we live with one another is called our walk. Now, notice in chapter 6, turn to chapter 6 and verse 10. We have one more set of relationships to deal with, and that is how do we deal with forces of opposition, the devil, and forces of darkness, things that oppose us. And I'm sorry to have to bring that up, but it's part of life. You're not going to just float through life and everything be wonderful. And there's obstacles, there's trouble. There's trouble in life. Everybody deals with it. It's because there are more forces at work than just God in the world. Paul here in verse 10 says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Now, in this third category of interactions, there is the devil. Now, listen, you're never going to see a guy walking around with a red suit and a pitchfork and horns on his head. You're not going to see the devil that way. But you're going to encounter his works and the things that he does and the things that he motivates. Listen, I don't know about the devil. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know everything about how he works. And as I've said before, I don't want to know. I don't care to know. I'm not a devilologist. That's not what I want to know about. My attention is on God and the way He works. I want to know about that. But I know this, that though you're not going to see a guy with a red suit and horns and a pitchfork walking around cackling and laughing and sulfur and stuff, like we see in cartoons and Looney Tunes cartoons, you are in your life going to come across His works, the things that He does and the things that He motivates. And what are you going to do when you come across those things? Well, unfortunately, what some people do is they just lay down and submit to it. But the Bible tells us, resist the devil. Submit to God and resist the devil. Submit to God and resist the devil. Submit to God and resist the devil. Now, just like you're not going to see the devil walking around with a red suit and pitchfork, you're probably not going to see God walking around where you can recognize Him either. But you have to be able to recognize what is God's will and what are the works of God and what's the devil doing and what are his works, and be able to separate those, because we're told to submit to God and resist the devil. Now, I almost think some people turn it around. They submit to the devil and resist God. No, we're supposed to submit to God and resist the devil.